Okay, well, I've just done a video on how your position in a map relative to your opponent can give you an advantage, and it probably doesn't take much stretching of the imagination to see some ways that that could be applied to map design. So we can use the principles explained in the positioning video to make parts of the map strong against other parts. That could be used to various ends, but in this video I'm going to be focusing on using this to promote movement, which, if you remember, was one of my three main goals for map design. Okay, well, clearly if a player can get an advantage in a certain position, they're going to want to move to that position. That movement is what we're trying to promote. Once they're there though, if there's no reason to move, they're going to stay there for potentially quite a long time, which is the exact opposite of what we want. Something I've been doing or trying to do since the very earliest ZGA maps, therefore, is trying to make sure every position in a map has at least one other position that it's weak to. That way, what should happen is as soon as one player gets in a favourable position, now the other player has a motive to move to a location that's strong against the other player's position. And then the first player has a motive to reposition again, etc, etc. Okay, I'll try to provide some examples of how I've tried to follow that rule on pipe. So let's imagine you're fighting a guy down here in this low area. There are a whole bunch of places that are strong against the floor here, but probably the easiest one to get to is going to be up here. So once I've moved up here, my opponent is going to want to move because he's now at a disadvantage. So one place that has an advantage against this, V-shaped overhang is up on this ledge here. It might not be so obvious why, but the pipe's quite a lot closer to this edge than it is to the V-shaped edge, so it's easier for you to break and regain line of sight. Also, it has a slight high ground. So once the other guy is up here, it starts to break down a little bit in terms of the the chain of advantageous positions. But up here, I think there's a slight advantage against this large flat area here because of this blocking wall. Well, that was deliberate or not, I can't remember. Alternatively, although it's going to be a bit hard to get to, obviously, if you're starting from over on the V-shaped ledge, back here is a stronger position against the general expanse here. If you did move up here, though, then the other guys either were going to want to close with you or get behind this piece of cover, or maybe even go right over your head to this one, and etc, etc, Okay, so that's just a rule I try to follow where possible when designing maps. That is just making sure every single space in the map has at least one other space that's strong against it. Ideally multiple spaces, because then there's some more decision making involved. I don't always manage to follow the rule, and there are situations where it's going to be impossible to follow if you're trying to achieve something else with the map design. It's not a disaster if you don't manage to follow the rule in absolutely all cases, because there are always going to be other reasons to move about the map, like looking for weapons, for instance. But I find following that generally produces maps that are more, kind of more lively and just give the players something to think about in terms of where they can move to get an advantage, as well as that it just makes the geometry of the map more involved in the game, rather than if you've just got this this big flat map where there's no position that's strong against other positions, and it's just all down to dodging. Well, I'm hoping that's going to be enough to explain the concept. Otherwise, do just let me know, and I'm sure I can elaborate or provide some more examples even.